But I believe Jeff Darlington will tell you, and every report I read this weekend, is that no one was offering the 49ers anywhere near what the Cowboys were willing to offer. So there was no hurry whatsoever to get this deal done. They could have done it anytime they wanted to. So pay no attention, we once again learn, to what they say. Just look at what they do. Have they ever behaved as though Dak Prescott was the guy you're talking about, the guy whose team that is, whose locker room that is, who's the guy that they all love and believe is going to be the guy in the star for the next decade? They've never acted like that before, and they're certainly not acting like it now. There is only one way this trade makes sense: to go out and trade a fourth-round pick, which teams do not just throw away. Dak Prescott was a fourth-round pick. The only way it makes sense is if Trey Lance at some point plays for them. Trey Lance's value does not increase at any point. It merely continues to decrease if he doesn't play a snap. So the only reason that you make this trade is because somewhere in the back of your mind you're thinking, someday maybe he's our quarterback. Not that Dak Prescott's job is in jeopardy now or anytime particularly soon, but the only sensible reason to make this deal is if somewhere in the back of your mind you're thinking, someday that guy might become our quarterback. Dan.
And that's why you would take any quarterback at any point for the chance of that. That's why I don't, maybe be very clear, I don't disagree with the move from Dallas.
Why? What good does it do you to trade for Trey Lance,
because
a fourth-round pick?
Because 3 years ago, he's the number 3 pick in the draft. And we don't know if he's not good at football. Like, we don't know that. So I don't...
So why are the Cowboys the team that should be figuring this out? Hold on, I'm trying to get you to the same place I am. Because somewhere down deep inside, they're not convinced Dak is their quarterback beyond this year. And maybe, just maybe, this is a cheap way of finding out if this kid could be.
And that might be true. And that's why, again, I don't think it's a dumb idea to do it. My aspect of it is understanding or believing that it's dumb to have no communication in any way with the head coach and the quarterback to do it. I laid it out. Dak Prescott in the last 3 seasons has missed 17 games. He's coming off of the worst year in his career where he threw 17 interceptions. The last 2 times that he's lost in the playoffs, they scored a total of 29 points, and he has a $60 million contract hit for next year. That's why the situation of this matters. If you're the Cowboys and you are intrigued by Trey Lance and it's worth a 4th-round pick, I don't disagree with that. And I don't think he threatens Dak's job right now. My point is, given the gravity of the situation in Dallas now, and knowing what the contracts look like in the future for their football team, and knowing the pressure that's on your quarterback, to do it and not to tell him or the coach, you're only giving yourself reason to have doubt as a part of your quarterback room. And I don't care what anyone says. Until you're in that room, you don't know what it feels like. And that's a real thing for quarterbacks.
RC, let me throw this thought at you. This is very reminiscent of 3 years ago. I guess maybe now it's 4 years ago, the Green Bay Packers trading up to take a quarterback in the first round and not consulting with Aaron Rodgers ahead of time. And what did Rodgers do? He went out and won back-to-back MVPs. Do you think this could have a similar effect on Dak Prescott?
Well, we're not going to start comparing Dak Prescott to Aaron Rodgers. We're not going to do that on this show. That's not what Get Up is about.
But play great. But play better than he ever has before.
It's exactly what I said the last segment. Absolutely. Right? This is something that says, Dak Prescott, no, your footing isn't as secure as one thought it might be. And it's not about the fact that we go out and get Trey Lance. We had to remember what happens when you're drafted where Trey Lance was drafted. You have to prove over and over and over again that you actually stink. Right? You got to prove that. It's going to be another team after the Dallas Cowboys, if Trey Lance doesn't get to play here, that's going to take a chance on Trey Lance because they remember what he was when he was coming out of North Dakota State. That's the way it works. But the thing I love about what Jerry Jones did is Jerry Jones actually can make this move and galvanize the team all at the same time. by not telling Mike McCarthy. Do you know who Dak Prescott can't be mad at? Mike McCarthy. By not telling any of the coaches or anybody else, the only person that Dak Prescott can have an issue with is Jerry Jones. And that's genius, because now this locker room rallies around Dak Prescott. This team rallies around their quarterback. If they like him the way that you should like a leader, the way that you should like a guy that has sacrificed what they have for the Dallas Cowboys or what he has for the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to want to see him do great. He's going to want to play great himself. I want to be able to walk in Jerry Jones' office next offseason and say, yeah, you went out and got Trey Lance. You made a trade without me knowing. Now pay me my money because I've proved to you that I deserve it. That's what Dak Prescott has to do, and that's what this move may encourage him to do, and that's what Jerry Jones is hoping.
And that would be best case scenario. Darlington, let me also throw one thing back at you, if I may. When you talk about how he couldn't beat out Sam Darnold for the third string job this year, which he couldn't. But a year ago today, what was Trey Lance? And I'll answer my own question. He was the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan went into last season with every intention of Trey Lance being their quarterback all year long, and he got hurt. The idea that Kyle Shanahan did not believe he could ever play, in my opinion, just does not make sense.
I don't know about that because, look, Kyle Shanahan is more incentivized than anybody on this planet to make Trey Lance succeed as an NFL quarterback. The 49ers and Shanahan look like idiots when it comes to their evaluation of Trey Lance because he failed and they gave up so much for him. They gave up on him. That tells me all I need to know. I trust Shanahan's on-field assessment more than most people in the NFL. And he gave up on Trey Lance. So him giving up on him now is far more significant than him doing it last year. The funny thing about this conversation from the Cowboys' perspective is that we can either make it sound like the most brilliant move in the world, as RC just did, or a really strange move like Dan did, when it's probably honestly somewhere in the middle. It's probably Jerry Jones saying, would we use a fourth-round pick in this coming draft if we evaluated Trey Lance as a potential backup quarterback? Yeah, we would do that. And I think that's all this is. I really do.
Super quick final word.
I love Jeff.
Seconds.
Respectfully, the 49ers situation makes Trey Lance a little bit more unique because they're a Super Bowl now or bust team rather than a developmental one. The move makes sense for Dallas. Not to tell Dak just brings an unneeded conversation.
All right. Jarrett Stidham had a very nice finish to his preseason. He did not start off well, but over the final 2 games of the preseason, he completed 64% of his passes with a 97 passer rating. Russell Wilson this preseason, 10 of 19 for a completion percentage of just 53%. And there was a point that Jeff was making. Someone tell me if Jeff is good with us here or not. Okay, so Jeff, I want you to make the point, because we've talked a lot about Russell Wilson and how much patience will they or won't they have, and Dan has his thoughts and RC has his. And we've had a lot of conversations about that over the weeks. But you made a point this morning. You said a particular phrase about Sean Payton in our meeting this morning that I thought was really interesting.
I'm starting to wonder if Sean Payton understands the assignment. He was brought to Denver as the highest paid coach, I think, just about we've ever seen. I don't know if he's making more or less than Bill Belichick, but he is getting paid exorbitant amounts of money to make Russell Wilson work.
What they gave up to get him, it's not just how much he's being paid, which is an enormous amount of money. They gave up so much to get him that I can't imagine they will not, and he, Sean Payton, will not do everything in his power before he gives up on that. No?
I totally agree. Sean Payton either has to make this work with Russell Wilson or find his Brock Purdy. You know, no one's kind of crushing San Francisco and Kyle.
Great point.
The roster's great, but also because Brock is there. And so, like, they gave up on Trey Lance, and they gave a ton up to go get Trey Lance, and it didn't work out with him, but they also have another solution. To RC's point, there isn't necessarily another solution. The preseason hasn't gone great for Denver, if we're being honest about it, in relation to this. First game of the year, first game of preseason, Russell wasn't great. The second week, he was better, but then Jarrett Stidham comes in and plays with the ones. And then week 3, Jarrett Stidham plays, Russell doesn't, and he plays really good. And then on top of that, your expectations aren't different for Russell Wilson, and so neither is America's. His starting receivers are Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims. The injuries to their skill group that has happened in the preseason, in my opinion, should completely change the conversation in regards to this. He went from having Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy to all of a sudden having Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, who's going to be a good young player from Oklahoma, but not right now. We got to see how long Jerry Jeudy is out. So I think the context of this conversation has to change in fairness to Russell Wilson. It has to. The leash has to become extended because we can't expect Russell Wilson to look like he did in Seattle with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and have Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims doing it. So we may not like hearing that, but the leash should be extended given the injuries that they've had to deal with.
Well, we'll see what winds up happening. Again, I mean, Sean Payton's going to be there for a long time. And we assume that Russell Wilson is going to be there for a long time because he's getting paid like he's a guy who is going to be your answer for a very long time. What is the latest on Jonathan Taylor?
The question here, of course, is in the next 24 hours, and that's the deadline that the Colts have imposed on Jonathan Taylor to find a trade suitor. Will somebody step up with the type of compensation that makes the Colts move the needle? Right now, we are honed in on the Miami Dolphins. We don't expect the Bears to be the team to make the move to make this trade for Jonathan Taylor, but the Miami Dolphins still are a team that are lurking behind the scenes, constantly looking for this upgrade at the running back position. We know they have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. They feel good. They keep saying they feel good about their running backs, yet every time one of these big names comes up, first it was Dalvin Cook, now it's Jonathan Taylor, we see them sort of flirting with this possibility. Will they give up the compensation necessary and then pay Jonathan Taylor? It is a tall task to ask of them, but also a situation that could put the Miami Dolphins in the driver's seat in the AFC.
Absolutely. He's a difference-making player, potentially. I keep saying Buffalo scares me to death. We talked about the Ravens earlier. We will see. The clock is ticking on the possibility of a deal, and if he winds back in Indianapolis, that might not be a pretty situation. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.